My name is Ken Rumpus. I'm the interim superintendent for the Francis Howell School District this year. And I'm really thrilled to welcome you and to have you here tonight. I know that if you are a parent in the room, that you have a week full of events right now, and in addition to buying school supplies and sports beginning, you have open houses and scheduled pickup, everything taking place. We recognize this is not the best time of year to do this, but we also thought that this topic in particular, we wanted to get going and get started, and so we wanted to hold the event tonight. So the next thing I want to talk about is really why we're here tonight. The first piece is actually bigger than Prop S. As I shared at the board meeting last month, we did a community survey at the end of the school year to hear from our patrons, from our parents, from our non-parent guardian taxpayers, what we needed to do differently in the district as we worked through the transition to new leadership this year. And we heard loud and clear that communication, transparency, shared decision-making were things that people have not felt that they've been a part of in Francis Howell the last several years. And I will say there are a significant number of issues and things that divide us right now in the world, but even within the school district. But the reality was that feedback was consistent across the board. We heard that. So we see tonight in using this roundtable as an opportunity to engage our stakeholders. Yes, tonight's around a specific topic, which would draw a group of people that are interested in this. Our intention is to use this model throughout the year to engage you in different topics. The format may be a little bit different. As the topics change, you might have some that interest you more than others, but we really see this as a first step in working to restore some of that trust in the district and your engagement as parents, as grandparents, as taxpayers in the Francis Howell School District. Specifically, why Prop S? Again, I acknowledge completely this is not an ideal week to do this. But we need to make some decisions about how we move forward with Prop S in the near future. And we couldn't wait until September or October to be doing that, because the reality is we need to be getting the feedback now to be making recommendations so the Board of Education make decisions this fall so that we can continue the work. And that was important to us. We are not here tonight to rehash the history of Prop S. Myself, along with Dr. Kim Hawk, our new CFO, we are spending a lot of time as we work through these first few weeks in these roles, trying to understand what took place. We weren't necessarily here, we weren't necessarily part of the team the whole time. We do acknowledge, though, that we need to share with our community what we understand about the process and what we went through to get where we're at today, more so that we can be clear about what we will do different moving forward. We need our community's support of our schools, whether that's a bond issue, that's an operating levy, that's just parent engagement and community engagement in general. And we do that through being open and honest in that process. So we're working through that, and that will be part of future discussions with you as community members and with our Board of Education. That's just not the purpose tonight. We really are here tonight to begin a conversation of how we move forward. We all learned about a year ago, last winter, that we do not have enough funds in Prop S to complete the original work that on that 2018 list of projects that we had. That's a reality that we're all grappling with. I understand that every one of you that is in this room that either voted for Prop S or helped try and get Prop S passed, you probably did that because you had specific projects in mind. Either your children, the buildings they go to, the schools they will go to, your neighborhood, things that you've seen as needs in the Francis Howell School District. And I honor that you have those individual feelings, but really tonight we're not here to talk about a specific project. We're not asking you to rank the entire list and leave with number 1, number 2, and number 3 for moving forward. We want to talk about the work in general and how we make those decisions and get your input, because at the end of the day we need to be making decisions that will be best for the entire district as we move forward. And the reality is we can't do everything. And I know that that's going to cause some hurt feelings, and we're going to have to continue to work through that and grapple with that as a community. But we want to own that, and we also do want to move forward. So we asked tonight, we'll talk a little bit more about the process in a few minutes, but to be open-minded, to listen to one another, to hear the ideas. The purpose of this format is actually to build upon the ideas you hear. We'll have some movement to other tables, so you can then talk about what you heard at the other table, and really to build on that. We want you to have a little bit of fun. Your tables are actually covered in paper. There's pens, there's markers. We want you to write and take notes. In addition to the host recording things for us tonight, we'll also take photos of those papers, because all of this will become data that we'll take back to the district as we make decisions. So when I talk about how we'll use this information tonight, there's two components. Those of you who are here in person will give us a lot of feedback, and we're going to be recording that from the hosts. We'll be recording that, looking at the information you provide on the papers. We also have a lot of patrons and parents who are not available tonight for a variety of events. They'll have the ability, I believe, starting tomorrow to go online and answer these same questions we'll talk about tonight to give feedback, so we'll open that up to get it from other stakeholders as well. All of that information will be brought back and synthesized by the district. And when you look at this diagram, we have a facilities committee. It's actually a board-directed committee that drives a lot of this work. They're the ones that look at the district facilities master plan, help to make recommendations when we were talking about Prop S initially, previous bond issues, to help guide the work. They'll be the core component. That includes board members, it includes employees, teachers, staff members, other stakeholders from the community. We also have a Prop S design committee that we work with. That's a team that supports the district that actually includes professionals who do the architecture work, the design work, the construction work, to provide the expertise that we need as we make some of these decisions. Those committees, working also with the district leadership, will analyze all the data that we receive tonight, the data that we'll receive online, other feedback that we get, to begin to talk about what the recommendations could be for how we move forward with the Prop S work. That will be shared with the board, most likely in a work session initially, so the board can understand it, ask questions, direct the committees to go back and have some further conversation, get further information. And we have an ultimate goal this fall of being able to make a recommendation to the Board of Education on next steps and what we believe the next project should be moving forward with the Prop S work. This process was shared, I believe, at the May board meeting from Jeremy Bettler, our project manager. And this was created really to speak to how we will engage the board as well as our community in moving forward. Before we even get to the preliminary design, we're doing the work we're doing tonight. We're talking about how will we ultimately prioritize the work that needs to happen next, looking at a timeline for those projects, which projects will happen, which projects may not happen. Once we've made that determination, you have to do some preliminary design work in order to come up with estimates of what things might cost. At that point, that will be brought to the Board of Education in an open public meeting where it will be shared with the board. There can be open conversation. The board can ask questions. Patrons will have the ability to ask questions. And ultimately, the board would then give approval to move ahead with the project. At that point is when we go back to our design team, the experts in the field, who do the full-on architecture, the construction drawings, which allows us to create what we need to go out for bid to get the actual pricing for what we believe these projects will cost. Up until that point, we're looking at budget estimates, and I shouldn't even use the word budget. We're looking at estimates for the work based on the information we have. Once we get to the point of a construction drawing and we have all of that input, then we're able to go out for bid and get the actual cost of what a project will be and whether or not we have the budget to support that work. At that point, with the bids, we come back to the Board of Education, who has the ability to, yes, approve those bids and approve the work going forward, or to say, no, we can't do it, we need to go back out, that type of thing. And only at that time will construction then begin. We shared this back in May that this is the process we want moving forward to highlight the fact that this will allow us to be open with our public and with the Board of Education and sharing where we're at in the process and the board more than one time having input on the work that we're doing.
Unanimously approved, well not unanimously, but with the 79% rate approved Prop S, which was the $244 million no tax increase bond issue. The good thing that was passed. The bad thing is just timing, because if you remember also in 2020, COVID hit. And so COVID impacted the markets, and as we, of course, started to do our projects, started to realize that, and almost every industry has been hit by that. So we've seen about 30 to 40% inflationary prices on things. It varies depending on material and whatnot, some higher, some lower, but on the average, it's about 30 to 40%. We've also seen a lot of material delays, just because there's also been a shortage of people going back to work and working and putting materials together, and so supply chains have been affected by it. And then basically, there was this predictive tool that you could use once upon a time that you could kind of estimate how much things were going to cost, because it was relatively along the same lines. Well, all those tools have been thrown out the window because the market keeps going up and down on different pieces of material goods. So it's really hard to have a really good predictive tool to use. The other thing is that as part of the COVID relief funds that were given out to entities, the district was one of those as well, led to a lot of construction projects that were taken. And so a lot of construction companies were out there in the markets just saturated with things. And unfortunately, in our side of the world, on public, we have a lot of rules and requirements. The private side doesn't, and so we're a little bit less attractive because it's easier for you to get things done without having to follow all these rules and regulations on the private side that we do on the public side. So construction companies tend to lean a little bit more towards that. So it's even harder to try and find construction workers out there, or construction companies interested in public work. So we also engaged in a CMAR process with Francis Howell North. It was the first time for the district to try such. It was new, basically, to the new to public entities to be able to do. So it helped us a little bit in the way because we were able to do our materials, get our materials as the designs were coming out. And so we haven't had any delays in materials in building the new high school. We caught some things early. Of course, they were inflated prices then, but if we had waited till the end, they'd be even more inflated. And so there was kind of some cost savings if we had not waited. The other thing too is that there were some changes in some scope since 2018 when the comprehensive facilities master plan was created. And some of that's related to just code changes, regulations that have to be followed. Some of that is because we incorporated some things that we had learned along the way since the 2018 master plan was created, and trying to incorporate some 21st learning, which was part of our strategic plan, some of those concepts into the building. So there was some of that kind of happened as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our new CFO, Dr. Kim Hawks, who is going to talk just a little bit about the finances of Prop S.
Excuse me, before you do that, I'm going to do this. What does CMAR stand for?
Sure, it's Construction Management at Risk.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim Hawk, and I have been here with the district for 45 days. And I am working hard on wrapping my mind around the financial state of what we're doing district-wide, as well as our Prop S work. And I first just want to say thank you for allowing me to become a part of your team. This is a great school district. You guys have so much to be proud of as family and community members. So much good work that happens here. On the Prop S budget snapshot, just to give you a little bit of information about that, our original Prop S voter-approved funds was for $244 million. We, after some fees, took that out for sale at $243.8 million. Because the market was favorable at the time, we were able to sell our bonds for a higher price than we thought we might be able to, and ended up with bond premiums of about $35 million. So our total revenue ended up being $279 million that we have to work with. So we've heard the number $244 million. That was what was voter approved, but because of the bond premium sales, we were able to get more money for our bond effort. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have already $218 million worth of projects underway, and we're getting a lot of good work done, but we still have $138.9 million worth of projects that we would like to have done to fulfill that 2018 list for our facilities master plan work that we originally brought to the voters. $50 million of that is in the area of building projects, adding on to school, adding a few classrooms, adding an auditorium, different projects of that nature. But the bulk, 149, almost 150 million, is in the area of maintenance. Things that people don't get excited about, like a new roof or new HVAC system, until they fail. So that's where a lot of these projects are. It's easy to get excited about a new building. It's hard to get excited about an air conditioning unit. So our quandary before us today, we have $61.8 million left in our piggy bank, and we have $200.8 million on our want-to list. And we're going to have to come up with some systems to help us prioritize what we want to do as a community and to feel good about it. We can't control COVID, we can't control the environment. Anyone who's bought a new house or bought a car or bought food at the grocery store understands that things don't look like they did in 2018, and we're just going to have to adjust and move forward together. So the first step in that process is taking a look at what have we accomplished. If you will take a look at your packet, turn to page, should have a number 3 on it. It doesn't have a 3, but it could be a 3. It says ADG at the top. It's a color-coded sheet. When you look at that sheet, anything highlighted in green, and this was what was presented to the Board of Education at the most recently at the June meeting. What John did for us was go through and create a key that you can use to get a sense of where we at right now. Anything highlighted in green is a project that is completed. Anything, and we have 8 projects that are completed, and that's a lot to celebrate. And when we really think about 8 projects, some of those projects are projects that actually have touched 12 schools. John, can you give us the example of that?
So a good example of that would be like the security vegetables that we put in a lot of our schools last summer, or in some of the elementary, middle schools, and one of our high schools. So that was one large project that touched many different things. Another good example would be some of the parking lots that we did. We redid the parking lot here at this facility here, shared with Howell Central and Sayers, so there's 2 schools right there.
15 projects have been awarded and are in progress. They're in various states of completion, but the ball is rolling on 15 of those projects. And then we have 32 projects that are remaining. And that's really where our focus is going to be, trying to determine which of those 32 projects we're going to be able to move forward with our current bond plans, and what other strategies we'll need to put in place to address the projects that the bond plans will not support. Because we know we still need to do the work. I think it's important to also draw to your attention that on some of the green highlighted, 3 of the projects we were able to use our Fund 4, our capital improvement fund, our regular operating money that we had to take some of those projects off the list. We try to live frugally during the year and then be ready to see what we can take off the list with our regular monies as well.
So I do want to acknowledge, when I first spoke, I said that we were not going to rehash progress tonight. And that's true. We also felt like we couldn't engage in this conversation without having a couple of slides that gave some context of where we believe we're at right now. I fully acknowledge that's our point of view as the district and the ones doing the work, and that in this room there are probably plenty of different points of view about what got us here. So that wasn't to minimize that or to push back on what other beliefs might be in the room, but just our current understanding. And as I shared, we continue to look at our process, and we'll continue to be open about how we might change that process as we move forward with future work. So the structure tonight, we're going to get now down to these conversations. As educators, we like to have norms or rules for how we work together in groups and how we talk. Ultimately, we want these to be respectful conversations. We want you to be able to speak openly at your table, to be able to listen to one another. The idea, the value of these types of conversations and the way we're doing it is to hear different viewpoints and to build on those viewpoints and try and reach some shared understanding about the work that we're doing. It's going to be 3 progressive rounds of conversation. We're going to share the first topic for your table in a moment. We'll spend about 20 minutes doing that. You have a host at each table who, like I said, will be recording some of the information. We'll give you a couple-minute warning when we feel like we're finishing the first question, synthesize it, make sure you guys feel good as a table, and then we'll have you get up and move to the second number on your name badge, which will be your second table. And we'll do 3 rounds of that. And then after the 3rd round, we will have time for 1 quick share out from each table, and then we'll talk again about what our next steps might be. So the first question that we want you to discuss tonight is, as our facilities committee looks at this work and evaluates how to move forward, they've created a list of project evaluation factors. And you have the complete list in your packet. It's page 8. It gives you what those factors are, and it gives you a brief description of them. We want you to take time as a table to read through them, to talk about the definitions, and really talk about whether or not these are the best factors that you believe should be used as we make decisions for moving forward, and what other factors might there be that we are missing that you think we should be considering. So you'll discuss those as a table, and I think you also have an envelope in there where they're cut up, so you can actually move them around, because what we want you to do at the end of the 20 minutes is you to rank those factors from what you think should be the highest priority factor to the lowest priority factor as we move forward. And then, like I said, if you come up with other factors that you feel like are missing, you can go ahead and write those on a blank slip and include those there. So you have some tape at the table. We're going to ask you to record those, and then we'll collect that information, and that will be one of the pieces the committee will use is those factors and how we weight them against the projects as we move forward.